Hello everyone. We're going to be doing a bit more of a casual video this time around, because I wanted to talk about the political spectrum, and I really didn't want to do a whole script for this. So we're just going to start. I think that most people are wrong about the political spectrum, because so much of what people consider to be right or left is just meaningless. Because really, you can look at definitions and terms that if you have a term which 100 people have 100 different definitions for them, that's a useless term. And the political spectrum, and left and right particularly, are some of the worst offenders in this respect. Ask 100 people what the political spectrum looks like, or what makes you right versus what makes you left, and you'll get 100 different answers. And you'll get 100 different, wildly different answers that seem to have no relation whatsoever. Now, of course, I'm going to follow this up with a pontification on what I think makes someone left or right, but I think mine is much simpler than most other people's are. And that is, I think that capitalism right, your right, not mine, and communism left, a proposition that no one's really going to disagree with, but is also a proposition that people seem to refuse to actually take out into reality as something that we should pay attention to. Because you have things like race, or things like someone's social positions that really shouldn't be affecting whether you think that they're right or left as much as they do. Particularly something like race, where you can have people who are black and people who are white who have almost the exact same political positions, including on ethno-nationalism, but one will be considered left and one will be considered right simply because of the color of their skin. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand what compels people to believe someone like Richard Spencer is on the right when he believes in things like Medicare for all, government infringement on the economy, and he doesn't seem to be particularly worried about property rights, and someone like the Black Hebrew Israelites, who I don't understand, are on the left when they hold the same political positions. It just doesn't make sense to me. Someone being white and having ethno-nationalist views should not affect where they are on the political spectrum as compared to someone who is black and has ethno-nationalist views. Those two people are functionally the same except for the color of their skin. So why would I care? Why would that affect where they get put on something like a political spectrum? And on top of that, you have things like economic and social issues, where we try to pretend that these things are completely separate, that someone can have libertarian social views but not have libertarian economic views, and can have authoritarian economic views in the form of communism. That really isn't the case. I find that in societies, you don't see lots of cases where there is libertarian social institutions but authoritarian economic institutions. That just doesn't seem to be the case. I challenge you to give me a country where we can, or past or present, where there is where they are libertarian on social issues, but authoritarian on economic issues, or vice versa. I just don't think that sort of country exists. Which goes into my argument about libertarian versus authoritarian mindset. The mindset of a libertarian and authoritarian are different in that a libertarian looks at something and can say, this is bad, but it shouldn't be illegal, and an authoritarian can't. So you have a lot of these sorts of people who take the term of libertarianism and apply it to themselves, when in reality they're just an authoritarian who have weird social opinions and weird moral standards. This comes along with like the libertarian socialist types. A lot of them are not libertarians. Like, they aren't going to allow you to do what you want with your property, and a lot of them would advocate for things like gulags in order to weed out certain belief systems that they don't think are very good. They just are permissive about things that society isn't broadly permissive of, and so they call themselves libertarian because they're permissive on those things, but they're not permissive as a broad ideal in terms of legality. Whereas actual libertarians can have very high moral standards and simply not apply them in a legal context. A good example being that a lot of people believe alcoholism to be bad, but that doesn't mean that people necessarily believe that alcohol should be illegal. I have this opinion about not just alcohol, but also drugs generally. I think drugs are bad. Doing drugs is bad. But at the same time, I'm not going to say we should make those things illegal because, well, I don't see why they should be illegal. Fundamentally, when I look at any argument for the legality of something, I look at why should this be illegal, not why should this be legal. Because I believe that the government restricts, not that it allows you to do things. On top of all of that, you think libertarianism versus authoritarianism is bad. At least a libertarian has a kind of clear definition, whereas things like conservative, progressive, liberal are completely meaningless terms, particularly conservative and progressive, because when you are a conservative, what does that actually mean? Or when you are a progressive, what does that mean? Well, it doesn't really mean anything. Being a conservative or a progressive is entirely based on where the society is. If a progressive was in a scenario where all of their pet peeve social issues were put in place as law, then they would be conservative if they were going up against a type of progressive which tried to change those things. By the same token, the current reason that certain people are conservative and certain people are progressive is because of how they feel about the newest social movements at the time, or any given movement. Being a progressive on economics, for example, it's purely relative. It doesn't really matter. It's not subjective, to be clear. Someone being a conservative is based in some form of reality. It's based in some sort of objective reality, but it's not solid based on time, period. Which I think is something that needs to be looked at. So, in conclusion, the political spectrum is completely messed up, and most people should probably just stop using it, frankly. So, yeah, that's all.